Have you ever walked away from a discussion, even after saying everything you had to say, and still felt like you somehow lost? Have you ever felt that tightness in your throat, like every word spoken pushed you further away from your strength instead of closer to it? Maybe you've been in rooms where certain people always talk the loudest, interrupt others, mock, or try to dominate. They confuse arrogance with confidence, and you start to believe that staying quiet is weakness. You feel like if you don't defend yourself, you're surrendering. If you don't fight back, you've lost. But what if I told you that this is a lie? What if I told you that the real power has never been in talking, but in not talking? There was once a thinker, often misunderstood, who saw this clearly. He noticed that people who talk too much always give away too much, that the person who feels the need to convince others is already on the losing side. Society trains us to fight with words, to explain ourselves, to defend our ideas as if every conversation is a battlefield. But nature shows us a different way, a quieter, sharper, and far more intelligent path. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is presence. It confuses people. It shakes them. It forces them to face themselves without distraction. This message is for you, the one who feels ignored, overlooked, dismissed. For you who leaves conversations feeling like nobody actually listened. For you who keeps the peace while others take advantage of your calm. Maybe you thought your silence was weakness, but today you'll see that silence can be your most dangerous weapon. Victory isn't about winning arguments. Real victory is never needing to argue at all. Ask yourself, why do you always feel the need to explain yourself? Why do you rush to prove you're right? It's because deep down you fear being seen as weak. That fear comes from the ego, and the ego hates silence. The ego cannot stand being questioned. It wants to protect itself at all costs. That's why so many arguments aren't really about truth. They're about control. People argue not to find wisdom, but to cover up their insecurity. Once you understand this, you'll see the trap. The moment you feel you must justify yourself, you're already in their game. You've already lost. Because the need to explain shows you're still chained to the need for approval. Real strength doesn't come from convincing anyone. Real strength comes from not needing to. True power is not loud. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It doesn't need applause or acceptance. There exists a type of person, a higher kind of human, who lives by this principle. Some call him the overman or the master of himself. He doesn't waste energy on cheap debates. He doesn't get trapped in petty emotional games. He doesn't need to raise his voice. His silence already commands respect. His silence is not weakness. It's strategy. It's a shield. And sometimes it's even a sword. But why does silence disturb people so much? Why does a quiet presence often feel more powerful than the loudest words? Psychology gives us the answer. When you don't respond, the other person loses control. The brain starts panicking. Thoughts like, is he judging me? Did I say something wrong? Did I reveal too much? Begin to surface. Silence is like a mirror. It reflects people back to themselves. And for many, that's unbearable. Because most people don't talk to express truth. They talk to protect themselves, to hide insecurity. When you stay silent, their mask slips. Their confidence shakes. Their fear is exposed. And that's why silence cuts deeper than any argument. If you want to master silence as a tool, there are 4 weapons you must understand. 1. Restraint. Stay silent when everything in you wants to fight back. That is strength. 2. Observation. Use silence to listen deeply, to see the cracks in others, to read what they don't say. 3. Timing. Let silence last longer than they expect. The pause builds tension, and tension is power. 4. Unpredictability. When you don't react in predictable ways, people fear you. They don't know what you'll do next. When you use silence like this, you shift the entire balance of power. You no longer orbit around others. You become the center. But here's the danger. Silence can also destroy you if you don't use it wisely. There's a silence that comes not from strength, but from fear. A silence that is really submission. You know this silence. It's when you swallow your words just to keep the peace. When you avoid conflict not because you're wise, but because you're scared. When you let others walk all over you and convince yourself it's maturity. This silence is not strength. It's slavery. It's the silence of someone who has given away their power. And many of us live in this silence without even realizing it. But there is another kind of silence, the silence of presence. The silence that stands tall. The silence that says, I don't need to prove anything. I know who I am. That's the silence you must embrace. So how do you move from being controlled to being in control? How do you turn silence from submission into dominance? First, you must break free from the need for approval. Stop waiting for others to validate your choices. Stop being the nice one who lets everyone else win. Second, train yourself to remain calm in moments of attack. Don't give them your energy. Don't give them your reaction. Third, remember that silence is not about emptiness. It's about presence. The silence of a true master is heavy, charged, undeniable. It shapes the room without needing words. And when the time is right, when silence has already worked its magic, then speak. One sentence, one sharp observation, one undeniable truth. That single phrase will hit harder than 1,000 shouted arguments. Look at your life. How many times have you stayed silent out of fear? How many times have you let others decide for you because you didn't want conflict? That must end now. From today on, your silence must change its meaning. No longer the silence of fear, but the silence of strength. No longer the silence of surrender, but the silence of authority. Because the truth is this: weak people shout, strong people stay quiet, and the wise choose exactly when to break their silence. So tell me in the comments, what silence will you choose from now on?